The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years before humans ever left their small blue planet. Earth was still covered in ice and caves when the elder species were already building empires across 1,000 worlds. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. They had watched young species crawl out of their home worlds and either join the galactic community or be crushed by it. They thought they understood how the universe worked. Then humans arrived. The year was 2847 by Earth counting when the first human ships appeared at the edge of Council space. They came in vessels that looked crude and simple compared to the elegant ships of the elder races. Their technology was young, and their knowledge was limited. But there was something about them that made the oldest species in the galaxy feel uneasy. High Arbiter Ven had led the Council for 300 years. His body was made of living crystal that pulsed with light when he spoke. He had seen empires crumble and new ones take their place. He feared nothing in the known universe. But when he read the ancient texts about humanity, he felt something cold move through his crystalline form. The texts came from the precursors, a race so old and so powerful that even the elders spoke of them in whispers. The precursors had disappeared millions of years ago, but they left behind warnings carved into stone and metal on 1,000 different worlds. Most of those warnings were about cosmic dangers like dying stars and black holes, but one warning was different. One warning was about a species that had not yet reached the stars. The warning was about humans. Ven called an emergency meeting of the full council in the Great Chamber of Stars. It was a massive room built inside a hollowed asteroid with windows that looked out at the galaxy itself. 17 species sent their representatives to sit in the floating chairs that circled the central platform. Ambassador Tommy Park was there representing humanity. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much. His aide Grace Kim stood behind him. She was younger and sharper with a mind built for strategy and war. They sat in the observation gallery because humans were still too new to have a full seat on the council. Ven floated to the center of the chamber, and his crystal body began to glow with deep purple light. "I have gathered you here to discuss the humans," he said, and his voice echoed through the room like music. The precursors left us many warnings about the dangers of the universe, but only one warning was about a living species. Only one warning told us to fear something that thinks and breathes. The representatives shifted in their seats. Some looked curious, others looked bored. The Dominion of Teeth sent their supreme commander, a massive reptile covered in scales and scars, who called himself the Devourer. He had conquered 12 species in his lifetime and wore their bones as decorations on his armor. What could we possibly fear from these soft pink creatures? The Devourer asked, and his voice was like rocks grinding together. They have held space for barely 2 centuries. We have ruled for 10,000 years. Ven turned his glowing form toward the reptile commander. The precursors built the stars, the Arbiter said slowly. They moved planets like toys. They created life itself. And yet their final message, their most important warning, was about humanity. They told us, in words carved so deep that time itself cannot erase them, never challenge the humans, never corner them, never threaten what they love. Leave them alone. The Devourer laughed, and it was an ugly sound full of contempt. The precursors are dead, he said. Whatever killed them is the real threat, not these humans who cannot even build a proper warship. I have seen their fleet. It is small and weak. My dominion could crush them in a single rotation. Other representatives began to murmur in agreement. The humans had been peaceful since their arrival. They traded fairly and never started conflicts. They seemed content to explore and build rather than conquer. To the warrior species of the galaxy, this looked like weakness. We are not weak, Tommy Park said quietly from the observation gallery. The chamber fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the human ambassador. He had not raised his voice, but somehow every being in the room Heard him clearly. We choose peace because peace is better, he continued. We build instead of destroy because creation lasts longer than destruction. But do not mistake our choice for inability. The devourer rose to his full height, nearly 3 meters of muscle and teeth and hatred. Is that a threat, little human? He hissed. Tommy shook his head slowly. It is a fact. We came to the stars hoping to find friends. We found a galaxy full of species who measure strength only by violence. We have tried to show you another way, but if you force us to speak your language, we will. Devourer turned to address the council. The humans control 3 star systems, he announced. These systems contain resources that the Dominion requires. I propose we take them. The humans can submit and serve us, or they can die. Either way, we will have what we want. Then move forward, his crystal form flashing with distress. I urge the council to reject this proposal, he said. The precursors warned us for a reason, but the vote was already being called. The militant species sided with the Dominion. The neutral species abstained. The peaceful species voted against, but there were not enough of them. When the count was finished, 11 had voted yes and 6 had voted no. The motion passed. The Dominion of Teeth was authorized to conduct what they called a territorial adjustment against humanity. Tommy Park stood slowly. Grace Kim gathered their belongings behind him. Every eye in the chamber watched them. On behalf of the United Earth Coalition, Tommy said, I ask you one final time to reconsider. The devourer bared his fangs in what might have been a smile. Or what, ambassador? What will you do? Send your tiny fleet against my armada? Write us an angry letter. Tommy looked at the reptile commander for a long moment. His expression did not change. His voice did not rise, but something in his eyes made the devourer feel suddenly cold. The precursors warned you for a reason, Tommy said. They saw something in humanity that frightened beings who could move stars. We have spent 200 years being peaceful because we wanted to be, not because we had to be. He turned and began walking toward the exit. Grace fell into step beside him. Have 30 rotations before we arrive, the devourer called after him. Use them to prepare your surrender. Tommy did not look back. He simply raised his hand to his ear, where a small communication device was hidden, and spoke 4 words that would change the galaxy forever. Wake up the sleepers. Grace glanced at him as they walked through the corridor outside the chamber. How many? She asked quietly. Tommy was silent for a moment. Then he answered, all of them. Somewhere deep beneath the Pacific Ocean on Earth, in a facility that did not appear on any map, 12,000 pods began to hum with power inside each pod. A human floated in dreamless sleep. Their bodies had been rebuilt cell by cell. Their minds had been enhanced beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had been created for one purpose, only to end wars. The first pod opened, and a woman stepped out. She was small and thin, with black hair that fell past her shoulders. Her name was Hana Cho, and she had been sleeping for 47 years. She took a breath and felt her consciousness expand outward, connecting with systems and sensors and weapons that spanned 3 star systems. She felt the Dominion fleet gathering at the border. She felt the fear of the colonists on the worlds that would be attacked. She felt the cold calculations of the council species who had voted to let her people die, and she felt something else too, something old and patient and hungry that lived in the back of every human mind. The thing that had made them survivors on a world full of predators. The thing that had driven them to conquer their own planet before they ever reached the stars. The thing that the precursors had warned about. Admiral Cho, a voice said in her mind. It was Director Minji Song, the oldest of the sleepers, speaking through their shared network. The council has authorized an attack on our colonists. Hana opened her eyes, and they glowed with a faint blue light. No, she replied. I felt that your ship is ready. The nightmare awaits. Hana smiled, and it was not a kind expression. Then let us give them something to remember. The Dominion fleet arrived at Kepler Colony exactly 30 rotations after the council vote. 400 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Each ship was a mountain of metal and weapons designed to break worlds and crush civilizations. The smallest of them was larger than anything humanity had ever built. The largest was the Extinction, the personal flagship of Supreme Commander the Devourer. The Devourer stood on his bridge watching the blue and green world grow larger on his view screen. Kepler 7 was a beautiful planet covered in forests and oceans. 3 million humans lived there in small towns and farming communities. They had come to this world to build new lives far from the crowded cities of Earth. They had no idea that death was coming for them. No military vessels detected, the sensor officer reported. Only civilian transports and a small orbital station. The Devourer felt satisfaction wash through his massive body. This was going to be easy. The humans had not even tried to defend themselves. They had probably spent the last 30 rotations crying and begging their government to surrender. Open a channel to the station, he commanded. The view screen flickered and a young human woman appeared. She wore a simple gray uniform and her dark hair was pulled back from her face. A small tag on her chest read Director Jenny Lee. She looked calm, which annoyed the Devourer. He wanted to see Fear Dominion Fleet, Jenny said in a steady voice. You have entered Coalition space without permission. Please withdraw immediately. The Devourer laughed and his bridge crew laughed with him. I am Supreme Commander of the Dominion of Teeth, he announced. You will surrender your world and all its resources to me. Your people will submit to occupation. Those who resist will be killed. Those who cooperate will be allowed to serve. Jenny tilted her head slightly, as if she was confused. I am required by law to give you one more chance to leave, she said. This is that chance. More laughter filled the bridge. The Devourer could not believe what he was hearing. This tiny female human standing on a tiny station above a defenseless world was giving him a warning. It was absurd. You have no fleet, he said. You have no weapons. You have 3 million soft, helpless civilians. What could you possibly do to stop us? Jenny did not smile. Her expression remained completely calm. I am also required to inform you the Kepler colony has activated contingency Protocol 7, she said. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal before we respond. Devourer had heard enough. He cut the communication channel with a wave of his clawed hand. Target the orbital station. He ordered fire all 4 batteries. 12 heavy plasma cannons on the Extinction unleashed their fury. The shots crossed the distance to the station in seconds. Each blast carried enough energy to melt through a kilometer of solid rock. The plasma stopped it, hung frozen in space as if caught in invisible hands. The Devourer stared at the view screen, unable to understand what he was seeing. Nothing could stop plasma in flight. Nothing could freeze energy itself. Then the stars behind his fleet went dark. It happened slowly at first. A few stars winked out as if hidden by clouds. Then more disappeared. A perfect sphere of absolute blackness expanded outward, swallowing everything. The sensors screamed warnings that made no sense. The darkness was not empty. It was full of something that the instruments could not identify. And from that darkness, a ship emerged. The Devourer had seen many warships in his long life. He had commanded fleets that could burn worlds. He thought he understood what power looked like. He was wrong. The ship that came out of the darkness was small, perhaps 1/10 the size of the Extinction. It was black, but not the black of painted metal. This was the black of empty space, the black of places where light was afraid to go. The ship had angles and curves that hurt to look at directly, as if it existed in more dimensions than the universe allowed. Supreme Commander, the sensor officer whispered, and his voice was shaking with terror. That ship has the energy signature of a star. Impossible, the Devourer said, but his own voice was uncertain. The ship broadcast on every frequency at once. A single voice, calm and feminine, filled every speaker on every vessel in the Dominion fleet. This is Admiral Hannah Cho of the United Earth Coalition ship, Nightmare. I am a sleeper. You were warned. You did not listen. Fire. The Devourer screamed. Kill that ship. Destroy it now. 400 warships unleashed everything they had: plasma cannons, missile batteries, kinetic accelerators, energy beams, weapons that had crushed a dozen species before humanity discovered fire. All of it flew toward the tiny black ship. The nightmare did not move. It did not raise shields. It simply hung in space and let the attack wash over it like water over stone. When the barrage ended, the ship was untouched, though the devourer breathed, and for the first time in his long, violent life, he felt true fear. The nightmare moved. It did not fly toward the Dominion fleet in any normal sense. It simply existed in one place and then another place, with nothing in between. When it passed near a warship, that ship stopped existing. Not exploded, not destroyed, just gone. The metal, the weapons, the crew all vanished as if they had never been. Screening started on every channel. Dominion captains shouted orders that meant nothing. Crews abandoned their posts and ran for escape pods that would not save them. The devourer watched as ships that had served him for decades disappeared one by one, erased from reality by something he could not fight, could not understand, could not stop. In 90 seconds, 300 ships were gone. The nightmare came to rest directly in front of the extinction, close enough that the devourer could see its hull through the viewport. Up close, he realized the black surface was not solid. It moved, it shifted. It watched him with something that might have been eyes or might have been hunger. Admiral Cho spoke again, and her voice was inside his head, now bypassing the speakers entirely. You have 100 ships remaining. Take them. Go home. Tell your council what you saw. The devourer wanted to fight. He wanted to order his remaining fleet to attack, to die with honor rather than run in shame. But his body would not obey. His claws were shaking, his hearts were beating too fast. His ancient warrior instincts were screaming at him to flee from a predator that outclassed him in every way. What are you? He managed to ask. We are what the precursors warned you about, Hana replied. We are what humanity becomes when you threaten our families, our children, our homes. We are the reason your ancestors should have listened. She paused, and when she spoke again, there was something almost like sadness in her voice. Go home, Commander. Tell them that we do not want war. Tell them that we never wanted this. We only want to live in peace, to explore the stars, to build something good. But if anyone ever threatens our people again, if anyone ever tries to hurt what we love, then we will wake up and we will end them. The extinction turned and ran. The remaining 99 Dominion ships followed their flagship, fleeing at maximum speed back toward the border. They did not stop until they had crossed into their own territory, and even then they kept going behind them. The nightmare hung motionless above Kepler 7, guarding 3 million civilians who had never known how close they came to death. On the surface of the planet, in a small farming town, a little girl looked up at the sky. She had watched the lights of the battle from her bedroom window. She did not understand what had happened, but she knew somehow that someone had protected her. Thank you, she whispered to the stars. Instos. Orbit Admiral Hana Cho heard the whisper through sensors that could detect a heartbeat from 1,000 kilometers away. She closed her eyes, and for a moment, she was not a weapon. She was just a woman who had done a terrible thing for a good reason. The precursors were right about us, she said, quietly to herself. We are dangerous. We are terrifying. We are everything the galaxy should fear. She opened her eyes and looked at the beautiful world below her. But we are also this. We protect, we defend, we love, and that is why we will never let anyone take these people from us. She turned the nightmare toward empty space and began the long journey home. The war was over before it had truly begun, but the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council had never seen anything like it. The devourer stood in the center of the chamber of stars, but he was not the same creature who had left 30 rotations ago. His scales had turned pale and gray. His mighty shoulders were hunched. His eyes, which had once burned with the fire of conquest, now stared at nothing. The most feared warrior in the galaxy looked like a broken old man. He spoke for 3 hours. He described how his sensors had failed to detect the human ship until it emerged from darkness. He explained how 400 warships had fired everything they had and done nothing. He told them about the way ships simply vanished when the nightmare passed near them. Not destroyed, not damaged, gone, as if they had never existed. 300 ships, he said, and his voice cracked like old stone. 90 seconds. I have fought wars for 200 years. I have never seen anything like this. I have never imagined anything like this. The chamber was silent. Every species, every representative, every aide and advisor stared at the broken commander with expressions ranging from disbelief to horror. Arbiter Ven floated forward, his crystal body pulsing with soft blue light. I warned you, he said. There was no anger in his voice, only sadness. The precursors warned all of using the observation gallery. Ambassador Tommy Park sat with Grace Kim beside him. They watched the chaos unfold below. A species that had dismissed humanity now scrambled to understand what they faced. They will want answers, Grace whispered. They are about to get them. Tommy replied. Van raised a crystalline limb and the chamber fell silent. The ancient arbiter turned toward the observation gallery. Ambassador Park, he said, your people have hidden much from this council. We believed you were a young species still learning your place in the galaxy. We believed your technology was primitive, your military weak. We were wrong in every assumption, explained. Tommy stood and made his way down to the central platform. He moved slowly, letting every being in the chamber watch him. This small, soft human who represented a species that had just humiliated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. We hid nothing, Tommy said. We simply did not volunteer information that was not requested. You looked at us and saw what you expected to see. A young species with small ships and limited territory. You never asked what we were capable of. You assumed. Tell us now, Ven said. What are these sleepers? Tommy was quiet for a long moment. He looked around the chamber at all the different species gathered there. Some of them had voted to kill his people. Some of them had tried to stop it. All of them were afraid now. 200 years ago, he began when humanity first developed faster than light travel. We made a discovery. In the ruins of a dead world at the edge of your territory, we found something the precursors left behind. An archive, said a representative from one of the elder species. We have found precursor archives before. They contained only basic information. This one was different, Tommy said. This one contained records of every species the precursors had ever encountered, including all of yours. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The precursors did not just observe, Tommy continued. They predicted. They ran simulations spanning millions of years. They modeled how different species would develop, how they would interact with others, what they would become. Most species follow predictable patterns: expansion and collapse, war and peace, rise and fall. He paused, and his expression grew serious. For humanity, the predictions showed something different, something that terrified beings who had mastered the universe itself. What did they show? Van asked. Tommy took a deep breath. They showed that humans, when pushed, when threatened, when our loved ones are in danger, unlock something inside ourselves. Call it survival instinct. Call it evolution. Call it the desperation of a species that grew up as prey on a world full of predators. Whatever it is, it allows us to go beyond our physical limits in ways that should not be possible. He looked at the devourer, who flinched and looked away. The sleepers are humans who have undergone procedures to amplify this response. Their bodies are rebuilt at the cellular level. Their minds are enhanced to process information thousands of times faster than normal humans. They can connect directly with technology, becoming one with their ships, their weapons, their sensors. How many sleepers do you have? The devourer asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Admiral Cho was alone at Kepler. Tommy said, she is one of 12,000 currently in stasis across Coalition space. 12,000, another representative gasped, and she is among the weakest of them. Tommy added. The silence that followed was absolute. The precursors ran their simulations forward. Tommy continued. They asked a simple question. What happens if the galaxy unites against humanity? What happens if every species works together to destroy you? Let the question hang in the air. They saw us burn a path through the stars, he said. Species by species, system by system. They saw us become something terrible, something unstoppable. They saw us consume this galaxy and move on to the next, and the next, forever expanding, forever fighting, forever winning. His voice softened. So they left their warning, not to protect you from is but to protect you from what you would force us to become. The precursors knew that if you left us alone, we would be peaceful. We would explore and create and build. But if you pushed us, we would push back with everything we have and you have. More than we can imagine, Ben said. Much more, Tommy agreed. We have weapons you cannot detect. We have ships you cannot see. We have soldiers who feel no fear and show no mercy. And all of it all, 12,000 sleepers, all our hidden technology, all. Our terrible potential exists for one reason only. What reason? A small representative from a peaceful species asked. To protect our families, Tommy said. To keep our children safe. To make sure that no one ever takes from us the things we love. We built these weapons because the universe is dangerous, and we refuse to let our people die. But we never wanted to use them. We never wanted any of this. He turned to face Ven directly. The precursors gave you a choice. Leave us alone and we will be the best neighbors you could ask for. We will trade fairly. We will share knowledge. We will help you grow and learn and build. Challenge us, and we will show you why beings who could move stars were afraid of us. The chamber remained silent for a long time. Finally, Ven spoke. What happens now? Ambassador, what do you want from us? Tommy smiled, and it was a tired, sad expression. We want what we have always wanted. Peace. We want to explore the stars with friends, not enemies. We want our children to grow up in a galaxy where they do not have to be afraid. We want to build something good, something that lasts, something worth protecting. He looked around the chamber one more time. The question is not what we want. The question is what you want. Will you keep trying to destroy us? Will you keep testing our limits until we become the monsters the precursors feared? Or will you finally listen to the warning you were given 12,000 years ago? Leave us alone, he said. Let us be your friends and we will never have to show you what we can become. Then turned to address the full council. I move that all military actions against humanity be suspended immediately. I move that the coalition accords proposed by Ambassador Park be considered for adoption. I move that we finally truly listen to what the precursors tried to tell us. The vote was called. This time it was unanimous in the observation gallery. Grace Kim let out a breath. She did not know she had been holding. Is it over? She asked. Tommy shook his head. No, this is just the beginning. Now comes the hard part. What is that? Teaching them to trust us. Teaching ourselves that we do not need to be weapons forever. Building a galaxy where the sleepers can stay asleep. He looked out the window at the stars. The precursors were right about us. We are dangerous. We are terrifying. But we are also human. And humans are more than just warriors. We are dreamers and builders and lovers and parents. We are everything we choose to be. He turned away from the window. Let us choose to be something good. The months after the Kepler incident changed everything. The Dominion of Teeth withdrew from the Galactic Council completely. Their ships retreated to their core systems and their borders closed. The Devourer retired from military command and spent his remaining years writing about what he had seen, warning future generations to never forget. 3 other aggressive species followed the Dominion into isolation, unwilling to risk facing the sleepers themselves. The power vacuum they left behind created chaos. Old alliances crumbled, trade routes collapsed. Border disputes that had been kept in check by fear of the Dominion now erupted into small conflicts. The galaxy needed a new order, and Humanity offered to build one deep beneath the Pacific Ocean on Earth in a facility hidden from every satellite and sensor. The 12 gathered for the first time in a century. These were the most powerful sleepers, the ones whose abilities went far beyond what Admiral Hala Cho had shown at Kepler. Each of them could destroy a fleet single-handedly. Each of them carried enough power inside their modified bodies to threaten entire star systems. They sat around a circular table in a room that existed outside normal space. The chamber had been created specifically to contain their combined presence, because when all 12 were awake in the same place, reality itself began to bend. Admiral Hana Cho represented the naval forces. Her consciousness was still partially connected to the nightmare which waited in orbit ready to respond to any threat. General David Yoon commanded the ground troops. His body had been rebuilt so many times that almost nothing organic remained, but his mind, his will, his humanity, those were still intact. Around the table sat 10 other specialists in infiltration and cyber warfare, experts in planetary assault and stellar engineering, masters of sciences so advanced they had no names. There was nothing in the known galaxy that the 12 could not destroy. At the head of the table sat Director Minji Song. She looked like a woman of 30 years, but her eyes carried the weight of 2 centuries. She had been the first sleeper, the prototype that proved the concept worked. Every enhancement, every procedure, every terrible capability had been tested on her first. She had survived them all. The Galactic Council has requested a formal meeting. Minji announced High Arbiter Ven wants to discuss terms. Terms of what? General Yoon asked. His voice was strange, metallic. Touched by the machines that kept him alive. Surrender alliance unknown. But Ambassador Park believes this is our best chance to shape the future. The militant species have withdrawn. The ones who remain are the ones who always wanted peace. Hana leaned forward, her ship connection humming in the back of her mind. If we handle this correctly, we could create something lasting. A real peace guaranteed by our strength. Or said a quiet voice from across the table, we could become exactly what the precursors feared. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Commander Brian Kang was different from the other sleepers. His enhancements focused not on combat, but on maintaining perspective. His job was to remind them who they used to be before they became weapons. Precursors saw us consume the galaxy. Brian continued, the future is not certain, but it becomes more likely every time we use our power. We wanted Kepler, and the Dominion will never threaten us again. But what happens when the next species tests? The US and the one after that. Do we keep getting stronger, keep destroying more until nothing remains? Minji nodded slowly. This is why the council meeting matters. We have a chance to build deterrence without domination, to show that we can be trusted. Can we? General Yoon asked. It was not a challenge, it was a genuine question. I have been awake for 3 days, and I have already planned 17 different ways to conquer the galaxy. I cannot help it. This is how my mind works now, which is why we have protocols. Minji said, why we sleep between conflicts, why we have Brian to keep us grounded. She stood and the room seemed to shift around her presence. The meeting will proceed. Ambassador Park will negotiate, and we will return to stasis, trusting that regular humanity knows how to build. We can only protect, and if they fail, Hana asked, we wake up again. Minji replied, and we hope we still remember how to stop. The diplomatic station orbited a neutral world far from any species territory. Ambassador Tommy Park sat across from High Arbiter Ven and representatives from 6 council species. Grace Kim stood behind him holding a datapad with humanity proposal. You understand our position, Ven said. The revelation of your sleepers has destabilized everything. Species that felt safe now live in fear. With respect, Tommy replied, that is not our fault. We existed peacefully for 200 years. We asked for nothing but fair trade and basic respect. It was the council that approved an attack on civilians. Ven crystal form flickered with discomfort. The Dominion acted with council approval. Tommy interrupted. The vote is recorded. We do not want war. We never did. but we will not apologize for defending ourselves. Then, "What do you propose?" Ven asked. Tommy gestured, and Grace handed him the datapod a new framework. The Coalition Accords. Any species that signs agrees to mutual defense, free trade, and binding arbitration of disputes. In exchange, humanity guarantees the safety of all member worlds, including protection against our own sleepers if they ever act without authorization. You would limit your own weapons. Ven asked, surprised. We would hold ourselves accountable, the sleepers answered, to civilian government. If one acts independently, they face human justice, and believe me, they fear that more than anything you could do to them. The May-Tavenant. Representatives looked at each other. The offer was remarkable. Humanity was volunteering to restrain its own power in exchange for peace. There is one condition. Tommy added, the species that withdrew from the council must be allowed to join the Accords. The Dominion attacked you, one representative protested. They would have killed millions, and they failed. Tommy said, punishing them forever helps no one. If they sign the Accords, they get the same protections as everyone. If they refuse, they stay outside alone, knowing that any aggression will be answered. Ven was quiet for a long time. His crystal body shifted through colors as he processed what he had heard. Finally, he settled on a warm amber glow. The precursors were right to warn us about humanity, he said. But perhaps not for the reasons we thought. You are not dangerous because of your weapons, Ambassador. You are dangerous because you understand something we forgot. Power without wisdom destroys everything, including itself. He extended a crystal limb toward Tommy. I will recommend the council accept your proposal, and I will be the first to sign. Tommy took the offered limb and shook it in the human way of sealing agreements. Then let us build something worth protecting. The signing ceremony took place 1 month later. 17 species joined the Coalition Accords on the first day. More followed in the weeks and months after. Even the Dominion of Teeth eventually sent representatives asking quietly if the offer still stood. It did. The coalition began building something new. Trade flourished as barriers fell. Knowledge was shared freely for the first time in millennia. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years found themselves working together on projects that benefited everyone. And the sleepers returned to their pods. One by one, the 12 descended back into dreamless sleep. Their terrible power was locked away, hidden beneath oceans and inside moons and in the spaces between stars. They would wait there patient and ready until humanity needed them. Again, Minji's song was the last to sleep. She stood at the entrance to her pod looking at the displays that showed coalition space, 100 worlds working together. Ships carrying goods and passengers between species that had never trusted each other before. Children being born into a galaxy that was safer than it had been in 10,000 years. We did it, she whispered. Brian Kang's voice came through the speaker. He had chosen to stay awake, serving as the connection between the sleeping 12 and the waking world for now, he said. The hard part is making it last. Minji smiled and stepped into her pod. That is not our job. We are the weapons, the ones who wake up when everything else fails. Peace is built by normal people, people who remember what it means to live without fear. Pod began to close around her. Wake me if you need me, she said. Brian watched the displays as Minji's vital signs slowed and her consciousness faded into protected sleep. I hope we never do, he replied. Outside the facility, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. Waves rolled against the shore, like they had for millions of years. The world was quiet and calm and utterly unaware of the power sleeping beneath its surface. This was what they protected. This was what made it all worth it. 50 years had passed since the signing of the Coalition Accords. The galaxy had transformed in ways that would have seemed impossible to the species who once ruled it with fear and violence. The Dominion of Teeth had become the backbone of Coalition. Security forces, their warriors who once conquered for glory, now protected trade routes and rescued ships in distress. The Devourer himself, ancient beyond measure, served as an advisor, teaching young officers about strategy and warning them about the dangers of arrogance. New species joined the coalition regularly as exploration pushed further into unknown space. Each received the same offer: protection, trade, and community in exchange for peace. Those who refused were left alone, but isolation proved more effective than any weapon. Within a generation, even the most stubborn holdouts were asking to join. The sleepers remained asleep on Earth Moon. In a garden built to honor those who served, a woman walked among the months. Director Minji Song had finally allowed herself to age. She had stepped down from active duty after 150 years. Her replacement walked beside her, a young man named Captain Ryan Park. He was the grandson of Ambassador Tommy Park, carrying on a family legacy of service. You were certain about this? Ryan asked. The council offered you a permanent seat, a place in the government you helped create. Minji smiled, and the wrinkles on her face deepened. She had chosen to keep them rather than have them repaired. They reminded her that she was still human. Have spent long enough as a weapon, she said. It is time to remember what I was fighting for. Stopped before a particular monument. 12 pillars of black stone stood in a circle, each one carved with a name. The original sleepers. Some had fallen in battles that history had already forgotten. Others had simply stopped one day, their minds finally reaching the limits of what even enhanced humans could endure. We were never meant to last forever, Minji said quietly. The procedures keep our bodies young, but our souls grow tired. That is the price of carrying so much power for so long. And my generation, Ryan asked, better designed. Fewer side effects. You will serve longer without losing yourself. She turned to face him. To remember why we exist. Not to conquer, not to control, to protect. The moment we forget that, we become what the precursors feared. Ryan nodded. He had heard this lesson many times, but he never grew tired of it. The responsibility they carried was too great for casual treatment. The accords are stable, he said. The coalition is strong. Do you really think we will be needed again? Minji looked up at the stars. They were visible even in the lunar daytime, brilliant points of light, representing trillions of lives now bound together in peace. The galaxy is vast, she said, and not every threat comes from within. The precursors did not just warn about us. They warned about what lies beyond, between the galaxies and the dark spaces, where no light has ever reached. You have seen the deep archives enough to know that our current peace is precious and temporary. Something is coming, Ryan. Maybe not in my lifetime or yours, but eventually humanity will face something that makes the Dominion look like children. What do we do when that happens? Minji placed her hand on his shoulder. Her grip was still strong, despite her apparent age. When that happens, you wake up, you fight, and you remember that you are not just defending borders or resources. You are defending the dream, a galaxy where every species gets to grow and learn and become something better. She let go and began walking back toward the transport station. Her steps were slow but steady, the walk of someone who had earned their restaurant. Stayed among the monuments for a while longer. He read the names carved into the black stone. People who had given everything so that others could live in peace. He thought about his grandfather who had talked the galaxy out of war. He thought about Admiral Cho, who had shown the Dominion what humanity could become. He thought about Director Song, who had carried the weight of being the first for longer than anyone should have had to. He thought about the future somewhere out there beyond the edge of known space. Something was waiting. The precursors had seen it. They had feared it enough to leave warnings carved into worlds that would outlast stars. They had known that one day humanity would have to face it, and they had known that humanity would win. That was the real message behind the warning. Not that humans were dangerous, not that humans were to be feared. The message was simpler than that. When the darkness comes, the precursors had written, when the things between stars finally wake and turn their hunger toward the light, there will be one species that does not run. One species that stands between annihilation and survival. One species that fights not for conquest, but for love. They will be small. They will seem weak. They will have soft bodies and short lives and hearts that break too easily, but they will not stop. They will never stop. Ryan looked up at the stars one last time. He made a silent promise to them, to the billions of lives depending on the coalition, to the sleepers who gave up their humanity so others could keep theirs, to his grandfather and all the others who had believed that peace was possible. "We'll be ready," he said to the empty garden. "When you need me, I will be there." He turned and walked back toward the transport. The memorial garden fell silent behind him. 12 black pillars standing watch over an ocean of stars. Above the moon, a single ship passed silently. It was small and sleek, designed for speed rather than combat. Inside, a young pilot was running routine patrols, checking for anything unusual. She did not know that beneath her feet 12,000 weapons slept. She did not know that the peace she enjoyed had been bought with sacrifices she could not imagine. She only knew that the stars were beautiful and the routes were safe, and somewhere on the world below, her family was waiting for her to come home. That was enough. That was everything. In the deep facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, the pods hummed quietly. 12,000 humans dreamed of nothing, waiting for a call that might never come. Their bodies did not age. Their minds did not wander. They simply existed, suspended between life and death, ready to become weapons again if the galaxy needed them. But for now, the galaxy did not need weapons. It needed teachers and builders and dreamers. It needed people who could show that strength and kindness were not opposites. It needed proof that the most powerful species in existence had chosen peace, not because they were weak, but because they understood something the precursors had learned too late. True power was not the ability to destroy. True power was the choice not to. The sleepers slept, the coalition endured, and humanity stood watch over a galaxy that had finally learned to listen. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, something ancient stirred. It had been waiting for longer than planets had existed. It had watched civilizations rise and fall like waves on a shore. It had consumed light and hope in everything that dared to grow. But not yet, not today. Today the galaxy was at peace. Today children played under alien suns without fear. Today species that had been enemies worked side by side, building futures they had never imagined. Today the warning of the precursors stood fulfilled in a way they had never expected. Never challenge humanity, they had written. But they had not written why. Now the galaxy understood humanity was not to be feared because they were strong. Humanity was to be respected because they were good. Because when given every reason to become monsters, they had chosen to become guardians. Because when handed the power to rule through terror, they had offered partnership instead. The precursors had seen humanity potential for destruction, but they had also seen something else, something that made them carve their warning with hope rather than despair. They had seen that humanity would choose love over fear every single time, and that was the most powerful force in the universe. The end.